And right now, I'll introduce the next session to you. And for this, I would call upon stage Dr. Arun Singh, who's the Global Chief Economist for Dun & Bradstreet, who will take you through an introduction for country ESG ratings. And trust me, this is not a session that you want to miss. So we'll just take a minute to just clear the stage because he has a presentation to show all of you. And we'll immediately jump right into that session then.
So you have some time to go to your LinkedIn accounts and use our hashtags.
But don't leave the hall just yet. I don't want anyone going out and clicking pictures right now. You can do that right after these sessions, though we want you to do that. All right, can we have Dr. Singh come on stage now? Can we have a huge round of applause for Dr. Arun Singh, the Global Chief Economist of Dun & Bradstreet.
I'm audible? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I understand this is a afternoon session, so good, insightful, and I know as Hitesh said that I don't want to hold on for the next session. That's exciting. That's lunch, actually. So between, insightful session in the morning and then afternoon exciting session, Arun Singh is there in the middle. So, but don't worry, I'll just take 10 minutes, not more than that. 1 minute with Indian standard here and there. Paul, please. I'm sorry beforehand. And so I think, in the previous session, there was a good, insightful discussion we had. And there was a gentleman asked questions about awareness, willingness, and implementation, of course, from the SME perspective. That's a concern, that's a concern. And that's going on for some time. In fact, ESG concept itself, if 5 years back or 10 years back, if we're talking about, then for most of us, it was like, say, alien. It's just basically getting to this one. And that's basically now core and the base to get into the global value chain. And I realized with that context, we basically DNB partnered with the SIDBI to launch one of its first kind, what we call the ESG Perception Index for the MSME, wherein we are going to capture the willingness, we capture the awareness, we capture the implementation. They are aware, but they're not willing. They are willing, but they are not aware, and certainly your implementation is a big challenge. Unfortunately, the first quarter score was not that great. It's less than 50. The benchmark is 50. And we are going to do every quarter. We monitor that's a progress happening. For example, everything at the policy level, they need a data. They need, of course, anecdote is there, but they need a data to have those policy implications to address at a very calibrated level. So we launched with the SIDBI, and we're going to track every quarter. Certainly, I think for the interest of this audience, we'll circulate and have a look at it. Now, this is different. This basically, I'm going to talk about ESG at a country level and the risk rating at a country level. Of course, we talk about the company, we spoke about the supplier, we spoke about a tier 1, tier 2. But what if those tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 supplier are based out of a country? Your country itself is not compliant on the ESG map. That's red or that's amber, that's a concern. We have to basically think about it. Things are changing very fast. Now, moving on, I think these are some of the major trends. I don't have to basically educate all of you. You belongs to the same industry. But we can't deny the fact that these are some of the trends across what you call the climate change, biodiversity, pandemics we spoke in the morning, of course, inclusions of the women and inequality and the urbanization from the social perspective, and then the governance piece, what's happening across the countries, across sectors, across region. We cannot deny the fact it's going to have much larger implications and going to impact all of us, not in just room, outside this room. We have to basically consider this as a part of our day-to-day operation when we talk about any company, not just manufacturing, across everyone, even at a country level, even at a sector level. Now, when I look at what's happening at a globally, from a financing perspective, from a money generation perspective, the green bond issuance, if I have to take data at a 2021, the cumulative amount, whose country released, in fact, they issued the green bond. The developed countries we talk about, they constitute 81% of that amount. And look at France, they're leading the pack. In fact, more than US. But unfortunately, if you look at the pie of developing countries, much smaller. It's negligible, in fact. If you take out China, that's nothing, which means the developing countries like ours have really a good, what you call the scope to cover up. Otherwise, then certainly it's a fast running market. We're going to lose out those space. Why talking about ESG at a country level is important? Because of the many development we talk about. There are regulatory changes happening. Just some of the few, just spoke about the taxonomy in the morning. We have a CSRD came up, and then European Union Sustainable Finance Disclosure. And basically, you need to know whether you're supplier or producer or customer, based on the operating of the country, are aware and compliant with these norms at a governance level. Then, of course, in order to get into the new market, new area, new segment, you need about those development, which country doing better, which country is not doing better. And then, of course, your awareness perspective, and then most important, your M&A due diligence. You need to, there are laws, in fact, in the European Union. When we talk about investing, you need to disclose certain sustainability risk to comply. That's basically, there's a norm, and we can't ignore that fact, which means it becomes very prominent and imminent to understand at rating at a country level. Now, what is the benefit, basically, one can draw? Certainly, from a long-term sustainability perspective, you can get about those awareness that on the map, how this look like. And certainly what are the underlying factors that could lead to the risk on the ESG front. And then most important, how that changes. Is it improving or not improving, or is it stagnated? Which means if it's stagnated, then certain that country, that sector needs to do something about this piece. Now, I think the most important, what's happening on the regulatory front, and I think, I'm sure that all of you are aware in this room about some of this law. We have a European Union passed, what you call a Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which basically mandate or make the companies to disclose their sustainability risk, in order to make those what you call investment in their report, in fact. When and we basically have those country-wise risk rating, that itself put the company into the front foot. That's that they are aware and they are sustainable. They are basically responsible company. They're monitoring these pieces around this one. And we have what we call the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is anyways part of the EU's larger climate change mitigation policy. Is going to be implemented 2026, which now talks about they are going to rely on the, the non-EU trade partner, the duty on that, which means developing countries will have a more costly stuff. And that's basically, if everyone's aware about this one, before investing, before taking into this consideration, one can have an informed decision, because they are aware about the country risk rating across 130 countries. And the third, German supply chain due diligence process, which I think we just spoke about the supply chain process. That mandate that is not just yourself, it's entire supply chain is basically compliant on the various E front, your environment piece, the S front, your basically child labor and other pieces, or human trafficking and all those elements, and of course the governance. It's not just yourself, it's entire your supply chain. So how this country risk rating helps? These are the regulatory benefits, and prior to this, we had those environmental and social factor as well. Now, moving on, as promised. So what we did, basically we went to various sources, collected data, and used our own data across 130 countries to find out what they're doing actually. So we collected something 100 odd parameters, rated 130 countries on the planet. These 130 countries contribute 99% of the world GDP, which means pretty much economically or commercially important countries being captured. And there are 32 indicators we captured from the environment side, 34 indicators we captured at the social side, and certainly 32 indicators we captured from the governance side to look at which country is doing better, which country is not doing better, or which country is fair on the map. And then we design assign score to each of countries on each of those subparameters on the scale of 7. Lowest, DB1, means very safe country to do the trade on the ESG front. They are great countries. On contrary, DB7 is the worst country to do the trade or to do any sort of investment activities in the country because they're certainly not compliant with the ESG front. Now, there are various scores. It's not just overall ESG scores. There are scores on the E front, there are scores on the S front, and there are scores on the G front. And within E, how the air and quality look like, how the emissions look like, how the change in emission look like, and in fact, ecosystem and climate change. So there are almost 5 scores within the E, what we call as sub-indices. These indices, there are something around 20 plus indices are available for all the 130 countries. And which means it makes good point for any of the companies before they enter in any of the countries to make whether they are ESG compliant or not. Certainly, from a company perspective, from a country perspective, this is how it will look like. And when we plot 130 countries on the global map, this is how it will look like. This is indicative, but it's very close to the reality. We have some of the European countries, North America, there are basically, including the Australia, there are very good in terms of ESG rating. But where there are some, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa type countries, and then other pieces, Middle East, they are certainly not that great. And there are rest of the countries are basically in the amber, which means somewhere in the middle. This is how the overall indicators will look like. There are use cases. I mean, I just said, I think I don't have to basically repeat, but there are various use cases when you talk about getting into the new market, trying to onboard supplier, so compliant to the various laws and regulation across the countries. We spoke about supply chain. I think the charity begins, at a company level, that how they can monitor their supplier, which country they are in providing. It's basically, it's not just your tier 1, probably maybe tier 4 supplier based out of a country which is not ESG compliant. Certainly your entire ESG will be impacted. This we are launching today, and we'll be happy to have any questions, any concerns later on, because as Hitesh said, I don't want to hold on. As promised, I've taken more than 10 minutes. And so this is the one piece we just, trying to introduce to the market, and just want to ensure that the companies get the benefit of this one. Thank you for listening.